Thank you so much for the introduction, Dustin. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with all of you. I'm a BU alum, but funny enough, spent 0 days of my BU career on this campus. I was down in the South End on the medical campus doing my master's in public health. My name is Amanda Makulec. I'm the executive director for the Global Data Visualization Society. And I'm going to talk to you today about making the case for why we still need dashboard developers in an era of AI. I think that there's been a lot of excitement and focus on the ways in which AI is going to change how we work. And I've heard some people say that the dashboard is dead. How many of you think the dashboard is dead? No one in this room, right? That's why you're here. You're a dashboard competition. And so I want to make the case to you today for why we still need dashboard developers. All right, so now we will go ahead and talk about dashboards and dashboards in the era of AI. So if you go to my house, you will find a lot of maps. I have maps all over my house. I have 8 different maps that look kind of like this. They're hand-drawn by a group in DC called Territories that look at different neighborhoods around DC, and also have some from other places like the South End of Boston. And if you go around my house, you find all these paper maps. And when I was a child, we used a lot of maps like this to go ahead and move around and get from point A to point B, right? We had a Rand McNally atlas that sat in the glove box. Anyone else have a Rand McNally atlas? Well, thank you for that. Maybe you're from the Midwest as well. But my dad, the engineer, really liked Rand McNally atlases and being able to navigate from point A to point B with a paper map. And that rapidly changed in, say, I don't know, high school. When we did very distracted driving, going ahead and driving around with MapQuest directions printed out either hanging on our dashboard and up on our actual dash in our window, or sitting them down in our lap and looking down like that. So thank goodness we have better technology these days that allow us to get from point A to point B, right? The ways in which we navigate the world have fundamentally changed. We use Google Maps, we use our navigation in our car, we use other technology that we didn't have 20 years ago. But the reality is we still need directions, right? We still have the same need to have directions from point A to point B, even if how we access those directions have changed. And as we think about what AI looks like and the enthusiasm around AI, this is the Google Trends looking at the changes in the enthusiasm and searches for AI over the course of the past, this is 5 years, this is 2 years right here. And if you're not familiar with how to actually read a Google Trends report, these are relatively scaled. So it's showing you the overall popularity of that search term within a given period of time for a given term. And if we go back and we look at the popularity of AI, we see all this interest in AI, not just by data people, right? But AI and the ways in which it might change the world around us. As we go ahead and we look and see what the trends look like for dashboards, I think what's heartening to me is that it's pretty flat, but doing okay, kind of in the middle, right? There's still an interest in what dashboards look like, but I will say when you put them on the same scale, AI dwarfs dashboards significantly in terms of overall interest. That's a much wider appeal in terms of whose lives it might impact. And so as we think about the ways in which dashboards evolve, we still need information in the world around us, right? Whether the delivery mechanism is a dashboard or some other tool. And so how we get that information might change, and how we develop the tools to deliver that information might change. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we still need information. Whether it's to run our business, it's to make decisions, it's to understand the world around us. So as dashboard developers, or just as analysts, we serve as data curators in a lot of spaces, right? Our job is to make sense of really disparate data sources and pieces of information, and help make sense of the immense volume of data that is out there. And I will say going into this, that I am very biased in making this presentation, because a lot of what I do is build these kind of things. So I want to acknowledge that bias up front, that I have a vested interest in seeing a continued interest in dashboards. And as we think about what AI will do, AI will change the way that we work. We're already seeing ways that AI is changing the way that we work. I'm not an early adopter. My chart chat colleagues, like Jeff Schaefer, are early adopters and very excited about AI. I, on the other hand, am kind of skittish about all the ethical concerns that we'll get to later. But AI will change how we work, and it already is. We're seeing ways in which people are integrating ChatGPT and asking questions, and asking for ChatGPT to answer questions and write information to go ahead and change how we might do discovery work or get ideas. We're seeing ways in which people are pulling images from Midjourney into our slides, the very futuristic looking images. And as you think about the ways in which these kind of tools integrate with our data work, I think it's important to recognize where maybe we might go too far. Like this. This is an example of a Midjourney developed dashboard, courtesy of Andy Cotgrave. Isn't it elegant? Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it meaningless? And you can develop different prompts to develop different dashboards, but if we come back to the idea of a dashboard in the simplest way as a visual display of data used to monitor conditions or facilitate understanding, I would argue that some of the prompts we might feed into a place like Midjourney are not necessarily going to get us to meaningful information. We might not want something beautiful with a whale. You're all excited for the next slide, right? With graphs, images, stats, UX, UI, and some dimensions. Are we ready? Do you want to see a dashboard with a whale? Midjourney presents to you a dashboard with a whale. Now, this might be beautiful, right? So it's very elegant to look at. It might make a nice poster on your wall. But if I serve this up in my current client environment with the Office of HIV/AIDS within USAID and send it over to my team members in Ghana, they would look at me like I was bananas. And so as we think about integration of tools, I think it's good to think about the edges of where things make sense. Things like AI make more sense in environments like Tableau, where you might use something like the Ask Data feature and using more natural language search to ask questions of our data and information. It makes more sense when you're digging into things like Microsoft Fabric, where it's allowing you to go ahead and dive in and automate insights and ask questions in the words that make sense to us. And I think that's where a lot of the power of AI comes in, this idea of asking things in a way that makes sense, even if you're not a data person. So I think we'll have three kind of key things that we gain from AI. The first is efficiency. We'll be able to automate away some of the tasks and things that we're not very excited about, but some of you might love data munching and data wrangling. It's not my favorite part of my job. But we'll have more efficiency in terms of how we work. There are ways in which people are testing out how to get a dashboard to ChatGPT and reverse engineer code. And that's a nice idea, but it presumes that the dashboard was meaningful or useful to start, right? And as we look at the survey that we do each year as the Data Visualization Society, we ask people questions about their biggest blockers in their work of delivering and doing great data visualization work. And the biggest thing that comes back year over year is time, the lack of time. The fact that we have our time occupied by things that are not delivering the most value. So I hope that we gain efficiency and reclaim some of that time. And some organizations like Deloitte have actually tried to quantify what that time looks like. This is an example of one of their reports that was looking at the kind of task automation that might happen and looking at high potential and medium potential tasks for automation, both around generating information and then also accessing and curating information. So let's reclaim some of our time with AI, but do it in purposeful, meaningful ways. Second, I think that AI is going to change some of how we deliver insights and information in terms of the expectations of our clients, the expectations of our users, and what that looks like. Typically, we're used to seeing a lot of these kind of words. I suppose you can't see that terribly well with this contrast. But this is the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Who knows the Magic Quadrant? Who has a favorite on the Magic Quadrant? Who gets angry when it comes out each year? So if we look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, we see names like Microsoft, Salesforce, Tableau, ThoughtSpot, Oracle, Qlik. We see a lot of names of groups that we associate with delivering dashboards and reports, tabular reports in some cases. But I think that what some of AI will do is shift the game in terms of expectations of what those tools can deliver to be leaders in the space. I also think we're going to see more things like notebook-based collaboration spaces. Notable is one example co-founded by Elijah Meeks, who was one of the co-founders for the Data Viz Society. And they actually built a whole ChatGPT plugin for their notebook-based platform that allows you, with no code, to ask for ChatGPT to go ahead and load data, think about it through the lens of a certain question or user, and then actually build you the notebook, which removes a coding requirement for setting up an environment that might be too much for some folks to overcome. And in some conversations I've had with Elijah, he's talked about the ways in which he's excited about the ways that these platforms could maybe remove some barriers to engaging and using data. Now, this might work fine for exploratory analysis, and that's great. For more advanced analytics, that bit might get more complex. But I do think that we'll have opportunities to go deeper in our analyses because of AI. It can look for patterns and read through whole tranches and terabytes of information faster than any of us ever could. And so we may surface new insights and ideas that then we need to probe further and ask questions of as we probe into how these insights are actually generated. I'm always find it a little bit comical to read the little teaser text on Google. Does anyone else read these and laugh if you've actually used the tool? Every one of them says everyone can use data. You can make dashboards in a minute and make these big promises that all presuppose a certain degree of organization in the underlying data. And so AI will change how we work. We can expect that, right? We're seeing it already. That is a train that has left the station, as much as I might be kind of at the caboose of that train, kind of hesitant about that. But the reality is we also have a lot of spaces where data looks like this. Data is not set up in a tiny format. Data requires some wrangling and reshaping to make sense of. This is what every export from the World Bank data bank looks like, if you've ever used one of these. And you have to reshape it and put it into some kind of format that's more usable. And so as we think about a world where these kind of data sets still exist, I have my own hesitations about whether AI can make sense of these in the way that people promise. When we look at the tools people use, also from the annual State of the Industry survey from BDS, we still see a big leader in the space is Excel. Excel is still the most widely used business intelligence platform in the world. My husband is an economist. He does everything in Excel. And it's complicated math and finance. And so as you go ahead and look at the popular tools, I think that we'll see places of needing to meet people where they are and helping them find ways to integrate AI into their workflows in ways that make sense for them and don't require a giant leapfrog over into a new technology space. So this means we have to think about data maturity within an organization, within the world around us, for us as individuals or as team leads. And that requires thinking about more than just the technology components or the data or the analytics, and instead also focusing on the people and the culture that change how data actually gets used. I don't believe that if you build a great dashboard or if you build a great analytical notebook with ChatGPT, that people will come and just radically transform how they go ahead and actually use that data. So technology is one piece of the puzzle and will change how we work. I think we have to think about the people side and the human elements of how we engage with information. And so that brings us to this fundamental question of what is the role of a dashboard designer in an era of AI? And I think there are three key things that we bring to the table as the human in the loop that are valuable. One is considering usability. ChatGPT is not going to sit and watch someone use a dashboard and do user testing right now. I can sit and do that. I can have a conversation about what we need to deliver to make that data usable. It's not just about making a pretty chart and something that looks nice. I mean, the mid-journey ones look really nice, right? But they're not very usable. And we had this big debate, if you recall, from the Information is Beautiful Awards last year. Some of you might know this. This was the winner, the gold winner, for the Business Analytics category for the IIB Awards. And it is beautiful. Look at it, it's a star. It's very nice. Do you have any idea what it says? No. You have to spend some time with it. This is visualizing the portfolio of projects from a small analytics firm based up in Canada, from Voila. And each of these little star components is a month out of the year. And each of these little marks around it are different projects and new people joining a team, and all the encodings are down there at the bottom if you could read it. I know it's hard to read here. This is not a very functional visualization around business analytics, right? We expect something more like this, which also made the shortlist for the IIB Awards. But the key thing is, the audience for these are very different. The one over here on the side that won, that was the postcard they sent out to all their clients. That makes sense as a postcard. This, on the other hand, is what you actually use for some kind of monitoring of conditions, like a dashboard that we think about. So beauty is not always what we aspire to. We can think through the lens of a user story, for example. Things like, as a program manager, I need to know where nurses are using our new mobile application in order to identify translation priorities. And then we can take those things as dashboard designers and translate them into what data we need and how we might present that data. And once we have a table of data, we might start iterating on different ideas for how we might present that data. And go on and on and on and on with different iterations. And then ask for feedback from the users on what they actually need. There's actually a project that Ferdio did where they took a very simple data set and visualized it 100 different ways. And I would guess that if you were trying to make a functional visualization to communicate this information, you would want to have a person talking to the users, figuring out which of these work the best. The second thing we can do as designers is to make sure our data has meaning, and that there's meaning in the work that we're presenting. If we think about metrics, if we're looking at those nurse application utilization metrics, are we looking to identify a country where we have strong monthly growth in new users, or where we have the largest segment of different users within a population? When we think about the volume of data created, there are many estimates out there. One of them is this 329 million terabytes of data generated daily. It's a lot of information. When we think about that much data, the important role that we play is actually getting in a room and having a conversation with people about how they use tools. One of my favorite projects I worked on when I was working in global health a bit more was actually around these impact team meetings, where they would bring together people from the supply chain group and from the analytics group and from the health delivery groups within a country. And they would look at a dashboard together and they could have conversations about why something went down, why something went up, why they missed a target. And it was a space for shared learning. So I think we as dashboard designers can imbue our work with meaning. When we look at what that means in practice, some estimates from Dataversity that were also shared through Harvard Business Review talked about how 90% of business leaders actually thought that data literacy was key to company success because of the importance of data and information in today's world. What percentage of workers do you think feel like they are data literate and can effectively use data? Any guesses? Brave people, someone. 10? 30? 20? 25, there we go, 25. It's a nice round number, it's a big one. So 25% of workers feel confident in their data skills. And I think we as dashboard developers can help bridge that gap. We can help make people feel empowered and excited and enabled with data in different ways, right? We can make data accessible and exciting. We can welcome them to the wide world of data and get them excited about using our tools. And last, and not least, is trust. I said at the very beginning, one of my biggest concerns with AI is around the ethical ramifications of what that looks like. I get concerned when I see who's at the table talking about AI policy. And it's a group of 18 different, very demographically similar tech CEOs who are arguing for the tech side of the coin. And then a group of women of diverse backgrounds sitting at the table making the case for ethics. And that's not a dichotomy that I'm comfortable seeing set up that way. And so when we think about trust and the ways in which we can help people trust data, it's important to think about how we trust information. We relied on information together to guide our behaviors and decisions over the course of 2 to 3 years, depending on when we decided COVID was done. 2 to 3 years to understand what was happening in the world around us. And there are people like Joss Wong, who does video work with data, who try to really get her hands into the data and information. Her video on pandemic polarization that this is a screenshot from has her actually going in and hand drawing and annotating and talking about the various different pieces of information she was presenting on a really sensitive topic, and bringing in the voices of people who are the data collectors, which is a really powerful way to help people understand who the people are behind the data. Looking forward, we're not just looking at pandemics as one global phenomenon. We need to imbue trust in data and information on other big topics that require really urgent action, like climate change. And even ChatGPT will tell you that when you go ahead and use its tool, don't share sensitive information. It's a big reason I could see adoption not happening terribly fast, is people be concerned about feeding in sensitive company information, and check your facts. that ChatGPT may give you inaccurate information. So we can be that human in the loop that doesn't do what that lawyer did and submit a brief that has made up pieces in it. Anyone hear about that? Yeah, that wasn't great. So we can be that human in the loop with data, right? We know our data, we know our context. So I think I've gotten some really poor marketing from ThoughtSpot, who keeps trying to convince me on Instagram that dashboards are dead. I don't agree with that statement, because I think we still need information. And I think that they missed the point here too. It says that dashboards have failed to deliver on the promise of data-driven culture. I don't like the phrase data-driven, I'll tell you that. I talk a lot about data-led. Data-driven makes it sound like I'm ceding control to something else. Data-led tells me I can follow along the path and use it for understanding. But also, a tool's not going to change culture. We as people who are creating those metrics and who are serving up those insights, we can help to shift and change culture. The ways that dashboards have been developed also have changed. The simplicity of a car dashboard as your KPI dashboard seems to be no longer. Our dashboards look more like a cockpit of an airplane, a space shuttle sometimes, but they get increasingly more complex. And we as dashboard developers can determine where we want people to focus their attention and think about how to use encodings and visualization best practices to draw their attention there. So, will AI kill the dashboard? People are getting lots of clicks from these articles. They really like writing them. These were just the first 4 that popped up. But if you look at these articles that are predicting the death of a dashboard, these go back years before the days of AI, where people say we failed to deliver on the promises of dashboards. And I think that we just had wrong expectations in some cases for what a dashboard would do in the absence of considering the people and culture pieces that are so important. So we still need information, perhaps more important than ever before. And I think that's why there's still a place and a role for people who can be those data culture stewards, who can step up and be those data curators, and something that all of you can do here in the room. As we think about what that looks like as a data viz creator, it's not just about dashboards, right? It's about lots of skills. These are lots of skills we looked at in looking at career portraits in data visualization in a series that we did as the DVS. And they look at different buckets of storytelling, communication, discovery, and analysis, and then break those down further. And when we look at what that footprint looks like for different people in different jobs, the vision of what a data viz developer or designer does looks different across organizations and roles. So even if in 10 years, the dashboard is dead, and we're all just writing lovely natural language questions and something is giving us accurate information, there will still be a need to go ahead and translate that into visuals that someone can use. I love that across this kind of group of different people that we featured, you have all these different paths from different spaces. Graphic designers, but also I'm an opera singer turned data analyst. And it's so cool to have all those different backgrounds in our community. So building our data visualization design skills and delivering on great dashboards does more than inform business decisions. These skills can help us be more data-informed citizens and do the same thing for others and inspire others to do the same. So as we think about where this comes together, we want to think about technology and the advances that can change how we work, but also people and the role that we play, the role our users play, and what those conversations look like. And we can think about things like efficiencies, changes in delivery, and greater depth with speed that we can get from AI right now. But we also can think about improving usability, making sure our data has meaning, and thinking about the ways in which we play a role in creating a sense of trust in the numbers and flagging when that trust shouldn't be there. So technology and people together, that's where the magic spark happens, right? And that's a lot of what we do within the Data Visualization Society is bring together people from across tech stacks and tools to have these kind of conversations about how do we use data visualization for good. And so if you're not already a member, I'd love to have you connect. I'd love to chat about the things we're doing to nurture, celebrate, and advance the world of data visualization. And I'd love to learn about what this all looks like inside of your organizations too. So I'll wrap up for now and hand it over for a few questions perhaps. And would welcome you to reach out to me via email, come chat with me in the vendor room, or find me at the networking reception. Thank you. If there's no questions, though, thank you all for your time. I hope this has teed you up to think about the ways in which these other more technical talks kind of feed into our practice and our work. And it was a delight to get to be here. And thank you to Dustin and Keith for all the coordination.